Hello, friend. I am the sleepy scholar. I know why you are here. The world is loud, and you need a quiet place to rest your mind. I am here to help you do just that. Before we fade into the dark, if you find peace in these videos, please like and subscribe to support the channel. And I'm curious, where are you listening from, and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments. Now, put your phone aside and find your most comfortable position. Let's count down from 10 together, to leave the day behind. 10. Take a deep breath in. And let it out. 9. Close your eyes. 8. Relax your jaw and your face. 7. Let your shoulders drop. 6. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the bed. 5. You are safe here. 4. Let go of today's thoughts. 3. Deeper and deeper. 2. Your mind is quiet. 1. Relax. It was a gloomy, drizzly evening in London, the kind where the mist clings to your coat like a damp secret, and the River Thames hung low in the sky like a soiled handkerchief, its murky water swallowing the last of the day's light. Dampness permeated every nook and cranny of the city, seeping into the cracks of cobblestones, curling around gas lamp posts to turn their glow into hazy orbs, and casting a heavy, oppressive sense of unease over the streets. I, Henry Carter, sat in my cluttered office above a tobacconist's shop, polishing my brass magnifying glass when the bell above the door jangled violently. My oldest friend and steadfast partner, Dr. James Wilson, burst in, his medical bag slung over one shoulder, rain dripping from his umbrella onto my threadbare rug. "Carter, it's urgent," he panted, wiping water from his spectacles. "Montague Star, stolen. Sir Alfred is beside himself." I raised an eyebrow. The Montague Star wasn't just any jewel, it was a legend, a 42-carat sapphire with a flaw that, in candlelight, resembled a shooting star. I'd seen it once at a charity ball, its blue depths so vivid they seemed to pulse like a living thing. "Valet's the suspect?" I guessed, already reaching for my overcoat. Wilson nodded, handing me a crumpled note. "Thomas, quiet kid, 3 years in service. But the evidence stacks up. Sir Alfred sent his carriage, it's outside." The rain hammered against the window as we stepped into the street, and I knew this case would be far trickier than the usual missing heir or stolen pocket watch. We navigated the winding, rain-slicked streets of London in Sir Alfred's ornate horse-drawn carriage, the hooves of the matched bays clattering against cobblestones as raindrops tapped out a rapid, nervous rhythm against the wooden roof. Wilson, ever the methodical physician, pulled a crumpled notebook from his satchel and flipped to a page filled with his neat handwriting. Sir Alfred Montague, 62, widower, prominent in parliamentary circles. The star has been in his family since 1789. His great-grandmother smuggled it out of Paris in a hairpin during the Revolution. He paused, tapping the page. Vanished from his locked study between 9 p.m. last night and 8 a.m. this morning. All surface evidence points to Thomas, his valet. Mrs. Hale, the housekeeper, saw him loitering outside the study at 10:30. And they found a key under his mattress. Fits the hidden compartment where the star was kept. But, I prompted. Wilson's brow furrowed. He knew me well enough to recognize when a case smelled off. But Thomas has no record. No debts, no known associates in the criminal world. He sends half his wages home to his sister in Yorkshire, for God's sake. And Sir Alfred mentioned a cousin, Rupert Montague, staying at the estate last week. Rupert's been in financial ruin since his horse racing stable went bankrupt. Asked Sir Alfred for a £5,000 loan just 2 days ago. Was refused. The carriage lurched to a stop, and the footman opened the door, holding an umbrella over us. "We'll start with the study," I said, stepping into the rain. "And keep an eye on this cousin." Sir Montague's grand estate loomed through the mist, its stone walls blackened by a century of London smog, ivy clinging to its sides like dark lace, and a pair of stone lions flanking the front door, their eyes worn smooth by time. The butler, a stoic man named Jenkins with a starched collar so stiff it could have doubled as a shield and hands that never seemed to shake, greeted us with a low bow. "Mr. Carter, Dr. Wilson. Sir Alfred awaits in the study." He led us through a hallway lined with oil portraits of Montague ancestors, men with stern faces and powdered wigs, women in hoop skirts, their eyes seeming to follow us as we passed. The air smelled of rosewood polish and old linen. The study door creaked open to reveal a room that felt like a sanctuary. Bookshelves reached the vaulted ceiling, crammed with rare volumes, some bound in tooled leather, others with frayed spines that spoke of frequent use. A large oak desk dominated the center, its surface cluttered with papers, a crystal inkwell, and a brass telescope. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting warm light over antique mahogany furniture, a leather Chesterfield sofa, a side table stacked with cigar boxes, and a grandfather clock whose ticking was the only steady sound. Sir Alfred Montague stood by the fireplace, a tall, slender man whose once crisp waistcoat hung loosely on his frame, as if he'd lost weight overnight. His silver hair was uncombed, his face haggard, and his eyes, usually sharp and piercing, were red-rimmed and glassy with worry. "Carter, Wilson, thank God," he said, stepping forward to shake our hands. His palm was cold and clammy, a telltale sign of sustained distress, and his grip was so tight it bordered on desperate. "I've barely slept. That star, it's not just a jewel. My father gave it to me on my wedding day, told me it was a symbol of how Montagues stand together, even when the world falls apart." He gestured to a portrait above the fireplace, an elegant woman in a Victorian gown, holding a small blue stone. "That's my mother. She wore it every day until her death." His voice cracked, and he turned away to stare into the fire. Wilson cleared his throat gently. "Sir Alfred, we understand the gravity. Carter and I will leave no stone unturned. But first, we need every detail, no matter how small. You mentioned Rupert Montague was staying with you. Sir Alfred's shoulders tensed. Rupert, yes. My distant cousin. He lost everything in that fool's stable venture. I let him stay a week, gave him £500 to tide him over, but when he asked for more, for £5,000, I had to refuse. I can't bankroll his recklessness forever. He paused, frowning. Why? Do you suspect him? I leaned against the mantel, studying the firelight play on his face. We suspect everyone until we have proof otherwise. Now, tell us about the hidden compartment. I nodded, my sharp eyes already scanning every corner of the study, from the brass fire irons neatly arranged by the hearth to the stack of family records on the desk, from the heavy velvet curtains, pulled tight, no sign of forced entry, to the small oriental rug underfoot, its edges vacuumed, no loose threads. Nothing escaped my notice. That was the secret to my work, seeing the things others overlooked. I crossed to the oak desk, running a finger along its polished surface. It was dust-free, as if recently cleaned, but there was a faint scratch near the left edge, too new to be from regular use. Sir Montague, let's start with the basics, I said, my tone steady to keep him calm. When was the last time you saw the star, and can you describe exactly how you secured it? Who else knows about this compartment? He moved to stand beside me, tapping the left side of the desk. Last night, just after 9 p.m. I'd been going through these old military records. My grandfather served in the Crimean War, and when I finished, I took the star from its velvet case. He pointed to an empty blue box on the desk, and pressed this panel. A small section of the desk slid open, revealing a shallow cavity lined with felt. I had this installed by a cabinet maker in Edinburgh. Only 3 people know it exists, myself, Jenkins the butler, and my late wife. He sighed. Or so I thought. I turned the key twice, habit, from years of caution, and closed the panel. He continued, his voice tight with frustration. I checked that the study door was locked, then went up to bed. Jenkins saw me leave at 9:15, he can confirm. This morning, I came down at 8 sharp, always do, I'm an early riser, and went straight for the desk. The panel was slightly ajar. I thought I'd forgotten to close it, but when I looked inside, he trailed off, staring at the empty cavity. Gone. Vanished. I searched the entire study, pulled books off shelves, checked behind the curtains, even looked in the fireplace. Nothing. No broken locks, no footprints, no sign of struggle. It's as if the star simply evaporated. Wilson stepped forward, his physician's eye noting details I might have missed. You said only 3 people knew about the compartment. But Rupert, did he ever enter the study while he was staying here? Sir Alfred's brow furrowed. He asked to borrow a book on horse breeding 2 days ago. I let him wait here while I fetched it, maybe 5 minutes. I never touched the compartment while he was present. I knelt down, examining the desk's legs for any signs of tampering. And Thomas, does he ever clean this desk? Every morning, at 7 a.m. He polishes it, arranges the papers, refills the inkwell. But he's never touched the compartment. He doesn't know it's there. I stood up, meeting Wilson's gaze. The pieces weren't fitting, not yet. I exchanged a quick, meaningful glance with Wilson. We'd worked together for 15 years, long enough to communicate without words. We both knew the thief wasn't some common housebreaker. A burglar wouldn't have known about a hidden compartment only 3 people knew existed. They wouldn't have left no trace of forced entry. This was someone with inside knowledge, someone who knew the estate, knew Sir Alfred's routines, knew where to find the star. Jenkins mentioned Rupert left the estate last night around midnight, I said, turning back to Sir Alfred. Did he say where he was going? Sir Alfred shook his head. He said he had a meeting with a business associate in Chelsea. I didn't think much of it at the time. Rupert's always chasing some new scheme. I stroked my chin, my mind already turning. Midnight, perfect timing, if the theft happened between 9 p.m. and 8 a.m. And Thomas, where was he between 9 p.m. and midnight? Finished his chores at 9:30, went to his quarters. Peter, the footman, says he passed Thomas's door at 10:15 and heard him snoring. Mrs. Hale saw him in the kitchen at 6 a.m., making tea, same as always. Wilson nodded. Alibi holds up, if Peter's telling the truth. I crossed to the window, pulling back the curtain slightly. The garden was shrouded in mist, but I could see a stone path leading to the servants' quarters. We need to speak to Thomas. Now. Sir Alfred pressed the bell on his desk, and Jenkins appeared within seconds, as if he'd been waiting just outside the door. Fetch Thomas, Jenkins. Bring him here, gently. No need to alarm him further. The butler nodded, his face impassive. Very good, sir. As we waited, I turned to Sir Alfred, my voice low. That key they found under Thomas's mattress, what did it look like? He furrowed his brow. Small, brass, with an unusual spiral design. The cabinetmaker made 2, one for me, one I kept in my safe. The safe was locked this morning, no sign of tampering. I raised an eyebrow. So Rupert couldn't have taken the spare key from the safe. Which means he had a copy made. Did he ever have access to your key? Sir Alfred's eyes widened. A week ago, he asked to borrow my pocket watch, said he wanted to show it to a jeweler. I handed him my waistcoat pocket, where I keep the watch, and the key. He could have taken it long enough to have a copy made. The door opened, and Thomas stepped in, head bowed, hands clasped in front of him, his thin shoulders hunched as if bracing for a blow. He couldn't have been more than 25, with mousy brown hair that fell over his forehead and a smattering of freckles across his nose. His uniform was neatly pressed, but his cuffs were frayed, and his shoes, though polished, were scuffed at the toes. When he lifted his head, his eyes were wide with terror, not guilt. There's a difference, sharp and clear, like the edge of a knife. Guilt is cold, defensive, eyes darting to avoid contact. Fear like his is hot, raw, pupils dilated, hands trembling so badly he had to clamp them together to stop. Sir Alfred, Mr. Carter, sir, he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. I heard you wanted to see me. Sir Alfred nodded, gesturing to a chair. Sit, Thomas. We just want to ask you a few questions." He sat rigidly, as if the chair were made of thorns. I leaned against the desk, keeping my posture relaxed to put him at ease. "Thomas, Mrs. Hale says she saw you outside the study at 10:30 last night. Can you tell me what you were doing there?" His face paled further. I was returning Sir Alfred's evening newspaper, sir. I left it on the hall table, but then I remembered he'd asked for it before bed. I walked up, but the door was locked, so I turned around and went back. That's all, I swear. "And the key," I said gently. "The one they found under your mattress. Have you ever seen it before?" His eyes filled with tears, and he shook his head so hard his hair fell into his eyes. "Never, sir. I swear on my sister's life. I don't even know where Sir Alfred keeps the star, honest. I clean the desk every morning, but I've never touched that panel. Someone put it there to frame me. I know who, too." Wilson and I exchanged a glance. "Who?" I asked. "Mr. Rupert, sir," Thomas said, his voice gaining a flicker of courage. "He came to my quarters yesterday afternoon, asked if he could borrow a needle and thread, said he'd torn his coat. I let him wait while I fetched it. He was alone in my room for maybe 2 minutes. That's when he must have put it there." Sir Alfred's jaw tightened. "Rupert. I can't believe it." I stood up, placing a hand on Thomas's shoulder. "Thank you, Thomas. You can go back to your duties. We'll be in touch if we need anything else." He nodded, relief flooding his face, and hurried out of the study. As the door closed, Wilson turned to me. "That's 2 strikes against Rupert, the key, the alibi hold. But we need proof, something concrete." I crossed back to the desk, my eyes sweeping over its surface once more. The family records, the inkwell, the velvet box, and then I saw it. Tucked between the ledger and the inkwell, a single dried drop of wax, dull amber in color, nothing like the bright yellow beeswax candles in the study. I knelt down, examining the wax drop with my magnifying glass. It was small, no bigger than a pea, but its texture was unusual, slightly grainy. "Wilson, look at this," I said, beckoning him over. He pulled a small lens from his medical bag, used for examining patients' eyes, and leaned in. "That's not beeswax," he said after a moment. "The color's wrong, and the texture. I've seen something like this before, in the botany lab at St. Thomas's. It's from Scrophularia nodosa, the figwort plant. Grows wild in the Scottish Highlands. They extract a wax from its roots that's nearly impossible to remove without chemicals." A memory clicked into place. 3 days earlier, I'd read a piece in the London Times about a gang of sophisticated thieves using this exact wax to seal locks after picking them, covering any scratches or tool marks. And who worked at the Royal Botanic Garden, researching Highland plants. I said, turning to Sir Alfred. His face drained of color. "Rupert. He spent 3 years there before he got into horse racing." I stood up, a smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. "We have our proof. Now we need to find Rupert, and the star, before he gets away." "Jenkins." The butler appeared instantly. Yes, Mr. Carter. Call Scotland Yard. Tell Inspector Greaves to meet us at Rupert Montague's lodgings in Chelsea, 14 Cheyne Walk. And have him bring a warrant. We're going to pay Rupert a visit. The carriage raced through the rain to Chelsea, the wheels splashing through puddles as we went. Sir Alfred insisted on coming with us, his face set in a determined line. Wilson patted his hand gently. You'll get your answer, Alfred. But try to stay calm, we don't want him to clam up. By the time we reached Cheyne Walk, Inspector Greaves was already there, 2 uniformed officers flanking him. Carter, Wilson, he said, shaking our hands. We've got men watching the back door, he can't slip out. Ready when you are. The landlady, a stout woman with an apron covered in flour, let us in with a nervous curtsy. Mr. Montague's in his room, sir. He's been packing a suitcase, said he's going to Paris tonight. Greaves nodded, drawing his truncheon. Let's go. We climbed the narrow stairs, the floorboards creaking under our weight, and stopped outside room 3. Greaves knocked loudly. Police, Rupert Montague. Open up. There was a scuffle inside, something falling, a curse, and then the door flew open. Rupert Montague stood there, his face red, a leather suitcase in one hand. He froze when he saw Sir Alfred. Alfred, what are you doing here? We're here for the Montague Star, Rupert, Sir Alfred said, his voice cold. Rupert's eyes darted to the officers, then back to us. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie, I said, stepping forward. We found the key you planted in Thomas's room. We have Thomas's statement, he saw you in his quarters when you hid it. And we found the wax, Scrofularia nodosa wax, the kind you used to seal the desk compartment after stealing the star. You worked with that plant at the Botanic Garden, don't deny it. Rupert's face paled, but he stood his ground. It's a coincidence. I've never seen that wax in my life. Greaves moved past him into the room, opening the suitcase. Inside were a few changes of clothes, a passport, and a small velvet pouch. He picked up the pouch, and Rupert lunged for it. That's mine. The officers grabbed him, pinning his arms behind his back. Greaves opened the pouch, and the room fell silent. The Montague star glowed in his palm, its blue depths catching the light from the window. Sir Alfred gasped, stepping forward as if in a trance. It's mine. Rupert struggled against the officers, his face twisted with rage. You had everything, Alfred. Everything. I was drowning in debt, my creditors were threatening to throw me in prison. You could have helped me, but you turned me away. I helped you, Sir Alfred said, his voice breaking. I gave you a roof, food, money. I told you I'd help you find a job, but I wasn't going to fund your gambling and your foolish schemes anymore. The star isn't just a jewel, it's our family's honor. How could you? Rupert sneered. Honor? Honor doesn't pay the bills. You've never had to worry about a thing, while I've scraped by my whole life. I deserved it. Greaves snapped handcuffs on him, leading him toward the door. You have the right to remain silent, sir. Anything you say may be used against you in court. As they passed, Rupert glared at me. "This isn't over, Carter." I shrugged. "It is for you, Montague." Sir Alfred took the star from Greaves, holding it gently in his palm as if it were a living thing. "Thank you," he said, turning to Wilson and me. "I don't know how I can repay you." I clapped him on the shoulder. "Clear Thomas's name, that's repayment enough. He's a good kid, and he didn't deserve to be framed." Sir Alfred nodded firmly. "I'll do more than that. I'm giving him a raise, and a letter of recommendation, anything he needs. And I'll make sure Rupert pays for what he did." We walked back to the carriage, the rain finally starting to ease. The star glowed in Sir Alfred's pocket, a tiny beacon of light in the fading dusk. That evening, Wilson and I sat in our favorite pub, the Blue Boar, a cozy spot with a roaring fire and tankards of warm ale. The rain had stopped, and a faint moon peeked through the clouds. "Another case closed," Wilson said, raising his tankard. I clinked mine against his. "Another truth uncovered." That's the thing about London, isn't it? It's full of secrets, some buried in vaults, some hidden in hearts. But they always leave a trace. A wax drop, a lie, a key out of place. He laughed. "You'd find a needle in a haystack if you put your mind to it, Carter." I smiled, watching a group of sailors play darts in the corner. I just look for the things others miss. Like Rupert's greed, so bright it blinded him to common sense. He thought he could get away with it, but he made a mistake. He left a trace. The door jangled, and Jenkins stepped in, holding a letter. "For you, Mr. Carter," he said, handing it to me. It was from Sir Alfred, thanking us again, and enclosing a check for our services. I folded it and put it in my pocket. "Nice work," Wilson said. I shook my head. "It's not about the money. It's about doing what's right. Thomas is free, the star is home, and a thief is behind bars. That's the reward." We finished our ale, then stepped out into the night. London was quiet, the streets glistening with rain, the gas lamps casting warm light on the cobblestones. A police whistle blew in the distance, and a dog barked somewhere. I smiled. There would be more cases, more mysteries, more secrets to uncover. But for tonight, the fog had lifted, if only a little. I pulled my overcoat tighter, and Wilson and I walked toward my office, our boots clicking in time. Somewhere above us, a clock struck 10. London breathed, and I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. Ready for the next mystery, the next clue, the next trace left in the mist.